Hello and welcome to Elevating Early Childhood. Joining me here on the podcast today, I have a very special guest. You're in for a real treat. We have Dr. Carolyn Green joining us today. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hello, everyone.
And yes, Carolyn and I both got the memo about wearing pink today. So yes, we are on the same wavelength, and we're super excited because this topic we're going to talk about today, Carolyn, is a hot one, isn't it?
Yes. Amongst parents, childcare providers, anyone working with children.
Yeah. This is a question we get asked all the time here on the podcast or just in general over at Pre-K Pages. But before we dive into all the nitty gritty about this hot topic, which we haven't even told people what it is yet, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be here with me today.
Well, I am all things early childhood. I actually started my journey out to be a pre-K kindergarten teacher. I finished school, decided to do that. And when I had my little ones, childcare was costing me more than my salary. So I decided to join the childcare world and fell in love with it. I started off as a pre-K 3 teacher. Then I moved up and became an assistant director, curriculum coordinator. Then I became a director, then a district manager, and managing multiple schools in the corporate world. Then I decided to branch out about 5 years ago and open up my own childcare center that did align with services that I had started 3 to 4 years prior to that, training teachers in the classroom. So I trained early childhood teachers from infancy all the way up to kindergarten, center directors, center owners, and also consulted many schools on opening and setting up their programs. And so I come here today. I met Vanessa through a connection, early childhood, and they thought that we would definitely connect and share some information that could help out both of our communities. And so I stand here today as an early childhood training service owner and a childcare center / training center owner as well.
That's awesome. And what gets me is that, Carolyn, you're located in the Texas area, and I was too for 21 years. We were both doing the same work, and our paths never crossed. It's so funny. No. It's a small world, right? Because now we've connected, and I don't live there anymore.
Full circle. I always say that you're just 5 people away from the person that you need to know. And here we are today connecting on something that is such a hot topic for your community and mine as well.
All right. I think they're ready for the topic. Are you ready, Carolyn?
Yes.
It is, drum roll, please. You do a good drum roll, too.
Those childcare sound effects.
Yes. The topic is biting. And this is a huge issue for teachers and parents and kids, too. So let's just start off with the basics. Like, why do you think, Carolyn, in your experience, why do children bite? I spent all my time in the 4-year-old classroom in the public school, and I didn't really have too many biters. I had a few over the years, and usually it was due to language delays or something. But why, in general, we usually see this with a little bit younger of a child. Why did kids do that, Carolyn?
So that usually starts in the infant room all the way up to toddler. And usually when it's beyond the age of 3 and 2, we usually associate that with the delay. But that is a question that many people ask, and it is such a broad, there's no one reason why a child bites because it's different per child. Like for every child, the situation is different. But generally speaking, it is usually because of a delay. Communication, a way of communication, frustration because they can't express that. And then in some cases, it's 2 things that people never think about. It's an affection bite and a hunger bite. And so a lot of times we want to pin it to like misbehaving or a child acting out, but sometimes it's just the way that a child communicates and we just have to kind of redirect it to the appropriate way to communicate.
Right. Yes, that makes perfect sense. I'd never thought about it in terms of a connection or a hunger bite before. That's interesting. I always thought it was because they wanted something and they couldn't tell us what that something was, or they were teething, right? People always say, my child's biting because he's teething. I don't even know if that's true or not, but
That can be true. Usually that happens usually before they get teeth, and the
mhm,
teeth are not a full set like a 2-year-old, because the
right.
common biting happens in your toddler and 2-year-old class, and they have a full rack, I say, of teeth, little piranha teeth or little dinosaur teeth that likes to bite down on things. So usually the teething type bites usually happens with your infant when they reach up and they just gnaw on your hand or gnaw
Right.
on your face. That is a type of bite. But the type of bites that really concern us and parents get alarmed about, our childcare providers get alarmed about, are those that happen in the toddler classroom because teeth are present. And when teeth are present and that bite happens, it leaves a mark. And
Yeah.
whenever there's a mark, that's a red flag for a mom and a teacher to try to explain to them why their child is coming
Yeah.
home with a full rack of teeth on their arm.
Right. And it's so upsetting for the parent, and
Yes.
my only context for this is, like my nephew, who's now 6 years old, so it doesn't apply to him anymore, or my,
We hope so.
well, yeah, I don't think he'll do that. And then my cousin has a baby who is going to be 1, or maybe she was 1 the other day, and they don't want their child to be a biter because when she was teething, she was. So now they're afraid she's going to be a biter because the last thing any parent wants, right, is for their kid to come home with marks. And they don't want to be the parents of the biter because they almost see that as being worse than the kid who's bitten.
Yes. Embarrassment.
Yeah, right. Like they must be a
Yes.
bad parent or something is wrong with their kid. Like all of this blame and guilt. So let's talk a little bit about the parents of the bitten child and the parents of the biter. Like, how do teachers handle this? I think that's what we're going for here is, what do you do if there's a kid in your class who has bitten someone? How do you take care of, because you're torn between taking care of the kid who's been hurt, right? And
Mhm.
what do you do about the kid who bit and their parent? Now you have both sets of parents to deal with. Help us.
So, here's what I tell early childhood professionals. Remember, whether you're working in childcare or the public school setting, whether you're the director of the center or the teacher in the classroom, educating your parents before it becomes an issue is everything.
Mhm.
Biting is something that happens at every school, every level. So training your parents and giving them that education as they're transitioning into the toddler room is the key to helping both the bitey and the biter parents understand what is actually happening during this biter process. So I'm going to start with the parent of the child that's injured. Who wants to pick up their child and see teeth marks on them? The first thing that comes to mind is, no one was watching my kid. Or
Yes.
how did you allow this to happen? But I tell you this, if you educate your parents on how fast it happens and how it can happen in any setting, especially if it's their first child, they don't understand how
Yeah.
kids interact with each other. And so they're thinking like you have to hover over them each day. So at the beginning of the year, we do a class on biting and we educate the parents, because we're going to have both sides, right, on what to expect in a toddler classroom. So how we deal with parents that has a child that has been bitten is, number one, we contact them as soon as possible. Do not wait till that parent picks up and sees their child for you to inform them that it happened. So if I get a phone call at work and you explain to me, hey, during circle time, your child was bitten during the activity, and you give them, it's a little bit of comfort that, hey, you saw what happened, you knew what happened. Then there's those situations where kids get bitten and no one knows that they
Right.
were bitten because they didn't cry and they went about their business. So what I give to early childhood professional is a tip that when you go in to change their diaper, when you go in to take them to the potty, do a quick body scan. Check their back, check their arms, check their legs, because those are common places that kids get bitten. And then of course, if it's in the face, then you would see it automatically, right? So one, communicating as soon as that bite happens to that parent. Two, doing body scans so that you can try to figure out what's going on. Another way is to tell the parent what you're doing in the classroom to prevent it. So if you know that that child gets bitten during diaper changing time because you can't grab them right away, then give the biter some activities to do that are close to you to keep them away from that child that they are prone to bite. Because one thing I'm going to tell you, and you can write this down and be for sure, once a biter is successful with the child and that child does not retaliate or react the way that that child, scares them and keeps them from biting, that child is going to be a target of being rebitten time and time and time again by that same kid. So once they bite them and that child just kind of shuts down and cries, or they don't say anything, well, then now that child is like, oh, it's okay to bite them because they didn't do anything. They didn't scream. They weren't afraid. It didn't scare them. And so they're going to go back. So from that time, you can talk to that parent and say, we know that this child is transitioning, as we talked about in our biting class. It's something that happens. So here's what we're going to do to make sure to prevent your child, not keep them from getting bitten. Make sure not to use that word, because you cannot keep a child. You can prevent them from being bitten. And that is a word that I tell parents, even when I tour them. We prevent biting in our classroom by using these tactics. But I'm going to be honest with you, as a teacher and as an owner, we cannot 100% prevent it. And when you tell that to a parent and explain that to them, they have a better understanding of this could happen in the classroom, but you're going to do everything possible to prevent them from getting bitten. I hope that those tips kind of help someone to understand that you have to be understanding when you talk to that parent. Don't just be like, hey, your child got bit. It's something that happens. Hey, I understand. My heart was broken when I saw them cry. I ran over and I put ice on it. Even the kid that bit them helped me take care of and console them. And we know that that's a way that children use to communicate, or we're doing this to prevent it from happening. So you have to have compassion with that parent, because it is a hard thing to deal with when you take your kid, drop them off, and pick them up and they have bite marks on them.
Absolutely. I really like what you said, because I have the same philosophy about other things in teaching. I think parent education is the key, and it has to happen before anything else, right? So in my case, I think of times when I'm explaining to parents how things work in the pre-K 4 classroom. I'm going to set them up for success. Like, this is what we're going to be talking about in a parent conference, and this is what we're going to be looking at, and this is how it works, because so many times it's their first child and they haven't been to a parent teacher conference as a parent before, right? And so we have to set parents up for success by letting them know exactly what to expect and then always, like during a parent conference, I would always say, if I had to introduce something that maybe wasn't the best news, always say, and here's what I'm doing in the classroom to help support little Jose to do this. This is what I'm doing. And here's what you can do too to help me help him, And so I think parent education is everything. And that is not something they teach you when you're getting your CDA or when you're going to teacher school. That stuff is something you have to learn on your own. So that is why parent education, in my opinion, is so important. So the scenario you just laid out for us, Carolyn, sounds fantastic. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or anything we can do to, we know it's going to happen, but maybe it hasn't happened to us yet, or not this year. It's been a few years. Things that we might do to make it so we can prevent it, if that's even a thing. I'm not even sure that's a thing. What do you think?
Right. So when we're talking about the biter, the child that is actually doing the biting, it is identifying and intervening as soon as possible. And usually before the bite even happens, they show signs that they're going to bite by opening their mouth and reaching out and looking for those things. And my thing is that keeping them busy and engaged, and at 1 and 2, keeping them with individual activities, whenever you're not sitting right there, will kind of prevent that from happening. A lot of times it's just a social skill that that child is trying to develop. And if you are not dealing with biting right now, or it hasn't happened in your classroom, or you are a toddler and a 2-year-old teacher, some things that you want to do is, like I said, observe your group, watch how they're interacting with each other, and just make sure that when you have to step away to change diapers, when you have to step away to address a parent or another child, you are keeping an eye on that child that you know may be struggling with some of those behaviors. Sometimes they start off with just hitting or grabbing or screaming, and you're seeing those behaviors, but you're not seeing biting. Sometimes the next step is biting because it gets attention immediately.
Right.
It gets that adult's attention right away. Mm-hmm. So those are some strategies that I would use in my toddler or my 2-year-old or my 3-year-old classroom, even if biting is not present as of yet in the classroom.
That's great advice. So another thing I was thinking of, and you're the expert on this, so you let me know, but isn't this another reason why we probably need to stay in ratio? Like if we're out of ratio, the more kids you have, the more your opportunities for biting go up, right?
Right. And, I'm in the great state of Texas, and our ratios are significantly higher than other states in our toddler classroom. And we use NAEYC ratios, which is usually the developmentally appropriate ratios for the age group. But in some states, the ratio for 2-year-olds is 11-1, or in some places, toddlers 9-1, which is quite a bit. And we want to keep those ratios low, but we know that at times that's not possible because of staffing, because of other issues that may occur in the classroom. So what I tell my teachers is that even if your ratios are a little bit, wonky for the day, small group instruction and grouping kids where they can rotate and have hands-on activities is going to be key. Right. So keeping them in groups of 2 to 3 are, as they rotate throughout the room, and you using your body to get up and move around throughout the classroom. Because one thing I noticed when I was a 2-year-old teacher, whenever a sub or whenever a teacher was in the classroom and I had 11 kids to myself, whenever there was someone in there, they would bite and lash out a lot more because that teacher was sitting a lot in the classroom. So while we try to control the ratios on the admin side, the teacher really can't control the ratios because they have to follow what the admin does. Sure. So if you are put in that position where your ratio is higher, make sure you group those kids and you're up and you're rotating. Because if my 2-year-olds, they knew I was coming. They knew I was coming by that dramatic play center. They knew I was coming by that sensory table. So they didn't even try it because they're like, by the time she get here and we do it, she's going to catch us. And so they know that you're coming. So you have to be up and watching them no matter what your ratio is, because they're like, oh, she's over there chilling out, drinking her coffee, maybe, talking to another teacher or whatever it may be. But if they know you're up and you're dancing around the room and you're coming by, they're not going to try it as much as they would if they did not know you were coming by that station or that center.
That's excellent advice. I love it. And, even though I've never taught really young children like that, I just know from experience that if ever another adult came into my classroom and started talking to me about some important school business, I'm sure all chaos would just break out. Break
out.
The minute my eyes were off those kids, it was like I didn't exist. You know what I mean? Just because I wasn't looking at them. And so I can totally.
And 1-year-olds are the same way. They keep that same mentality. I have watched 1-year-olds watch me watch them just to see how long I was going to be watching them. And they would lean in and try to do something. And I'm watching them and they're just watching to see if I'm going to ever lift up my eyes. And then as soon as I turn my head, they're like a little piranha. They just try to jump in and bite. And so, but as long as you're watching them, they're like, I don't know what she's gonna do or say, so I'm gonna just lean in and see if I can get this bite in. 1-year-olds are the exact same way.
Yeah.
They're little people, and they know exactly what your expectations are at the age of 1 and 2.
Right. And I think that, all of that is just great advice. You obviously are the guru when it comes to childcare or working with young children in general. And everyone who works with you, under you, is super, super blessed, I think, because sounds like you would be the most awesome administrator to work for. So
probably the most animated one. I'm sure they enjoy me, coming in and singing my mermaid songs and flying around on my broom sometime because I'm doing an inspection. So I have to be the witch for the day. But I mean, the and a little, they're like, oh my God, here she comes again. But I try to keep them going because they need that encouragement too. At the end of the day, the teachers are the ones that are dealing with these issues, the bitey and the biter. And so I try to, as their administrator, and I'm sure I'm talking to some childcare directors out there, to support them when they need to be supported and not assume that they know what to do. And like you said, there are people in the classroom right now that have been a teacher for 10, 15 years and never had a biter before. And then all of a sudden you have that year where you have 3 biters at one time. So, it happens to the best of us. And I want teachers and parents to understand this. Your job is to prevent it. You cannot stop it. You're not a horrible parent if you have a child that's a biter. You're not a bad parent for leaving your child in a center that your child was bitten at. That's not that. Our job is to support, encourage, and protect our kids, but also try to prevent it. And that's the part. I know a lot of times for the biter, we put a lot of attention on the biter. And I'm going to say this for my early childhood professionals. If a child gets bitten, your direct attention should not be to address the behavior of the biter right then. It should be 100% caring, empathetic, and loving to the child that got bitten, even to the child that bit them. Oh my God, Johnny got bitten. All right, Crystal, come over here and let's help fix Johnny's bite. And you will find that children will be like, oh my God, I did that. I feel so bad. They're empathetic as well. So if we teach that and encourage that, as opposed to going straight to the behavior, oh my God, I can't believe that you just bit him. You go to time. What about that child that's sitting there and crying and holding their bite? And we're focusing so much on the behavior that child is going to keep doing it time and time again because they know that's what's going to get your attention.
Yeah, for sure.
But if your attention goes straight to that child, I have totally like a fire extinguisher put out a lot of biters in my classroom when I was a TWS teacher. Why? Because I didn't give attention to that behavior right then. I waited, let that child calm down, take care of the child that has been bitten, let that child take care of them. And then when everything is done, I talk about biting. What do we use our teeth for? I talk about it in circle time. I talk about it when we're doing activities. Remember, if you're upset, just squeeze your hands real tight and you can make your angry face. But we don't use our teeth on our friends. And so teaching that in lieu of the biting or before the biting actually happened is so important. And it takes the attention away from the behavior. And that's what we really want to do with biters.
Wow. You're a wealth of information, Carolyn. I know that our listeners that are listening to this episode of Elevating Early Childhood right now, some of them are going to want to hear more from Dr. Carolyn. So tell us where on earth, if we're listening along, we can connect with you online or in person.
All right. So I am located in Houston, Texas, and I do a lot of training here in the Houston area. The name of our company is Training, the letter U, to Succeed, known as TUTS, Tuts. And it was named after my aunt who raised me, and I was named after her, Carolyn. So we call the company Training You to Succeed. You can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook under Training You to Succeed, and we host in-person trainings, virtual trainings, and a list of those trainings we do post on our Instagram page and on our website. Coming up soon, we have a virtual boot camp, getting back into shape for childcare since we kind of got out of shape with COVID.
Right.
And that conference is actually going to be in November, the first week of November, November 4th and 5th, and it's virtual. And so if you're listening anywhere in the world and you connect with us on our Instagram page, Training You to Succeed, you will see the registration, and that is actually a free conference for early childhood professionals to learn about behavior, to learn about learning centers, to learn about just some tips of tightening up in the classroom and having a better quality environment for children.
Well, that's amazing. We are all about free in the early childhood world. If it's free, it's for me. That's our motto.
It's for me. Yes.
So we will put links in the show notes if you're watching along. For those of you watching on YouTube, we'll put links to the things that Carolyn mentioned, the ways that you can connect with her and find out more about that free conference. We'll put those below. And if not, you can find her on Instagram at Training You, right?
Yes, Training You, TO Succeed.
Okay, Training You to Succeed. Yes. And I just would like to thank you again, Carolyn, for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
I really think that we are quite alike in our thought processes here about early childhood, and we obviously like the good colors.
Yes.
So thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule, because you sound like you are a very busy lady. Thank you for talking with us today, and I hope to see all of you out there again who are watching or listening again soon here at Elevating Early Childhood. Until next time, I'm Vanessa Levin, and this is Dr. Carolyn Green. If you think these videos are valuable, you have got to come check out the Teaching Trailblazers program. Teaching Trailblazers is the place for teachers like you to get the professional development resources and support you need to thrive. It's where you can learn relevant, life-changing best practices with professional development created specifically around the challenges early childhood teachers face. It's where you can get access to a complete research-based pre-K curriculum that you can use either to supplement your existing curriculum or use on its own to get 100% of your students kindergarten ready by the end of the year. And it's where you can hang out and connect over all things early childhood with other teachers just like you and me. It's my favorite place on earth, and it will change your teacher life, I guarantee it. Come join us at teachingtrailblazers.com to get more information and apply today. That's teachingtrailblazers.com. I can't wait to see you there.